Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I'm Verit Kogan, your host, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Stéphane and Shalee Schafeitel, also known as Stéph and Shay. Stéph and Shay are the #1 international best-selling authors of the book Master Your Mindpower, which is a Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Barnes& Noble, and Amazon bestseller, and I highly recommend it. In fact, Steph and Shay are my Mind Power instructors, and they are absolutely extraordinary what they do. In fact, they are world-renowned celebrity coaches, and they help business leaders and high performers increase their mental toughness and emotional resilience. And I'm so delighted to have you here. Thank you for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Verit, for having us. It's an honor to be here and to see you again.
Good to see you again. How are things going?
I am thrilled and excited to be with you. Things are going great, thanks to many of the tools that the two of you have taught me.
Hey, well,
I get now to expand to the rest of the world as well as you do. So thank you.
Hey, you bet. We always say the presenting of the tools, the techniques, the strategies, et cetera, that's only a small part of the fulfillment factor for us. The real fulfillment comes in hearing from individuals who are applying it and actually using it. And that's when our fulfillment meter goes all the way up to the top. But just
so thanks for going out and applying it.
Right. Right.
Because that makes all the world a difference. And now you're creating a ripple effect and, reaching many, many people with your podcast, which is excellent. So
congratulations.
We're thrilled to be here.
Thank you. So how about we kick things off by the two of you sharing a little bit about your background. How did you get to learning what you've learned and doing what you do?
Yeah. So I'll go first.
Perfect.
So, a little bit about my background. I'll go kind of way back. So my parents came from the old country. My dad was Swiss. My mom was French. My dad started a textile company in Greenville, South Carolina in the 1970s with really only a few $1,000s to his name. And he created a multi-million-dollar business. I started working for my dad when I was 11 years old already. So I started learning about entrepreneurship and building businesses at a young age. My dad's love languages were success, hard work, and precision. He was Swiss, right?
Yeah.
So one of the most important things I learned from my dad was the importance of maintaining a positive outlook on everything in life, no matter the circumstances, even amidst tragedy, he would say. His mantra was, everything happens for a reason. So my dad was really my first mentor, and he was my first introduction to mind power. So
he was walking mind power.
He was walking mind power, Edmund Schafeitel, and he's no longer with us, but he's still with us, in a very different way. And I know you get that, but so he was my first introduction to mind power. But this is interesting as it relates to mind power. When I was 16 years old was when I started living basically by myself. So my parents split up whenever I was very young. I had a stepmother. She was kind of like a step monster, to be honest, in the very beginning. She was very young. She was doing the best she could. But anyway, when I was 16, my stepmother left my dad. My brother was off to college, who was my best friend. And my dad came to me one evening and said, in a strong Swiss accent, he said, Stéphane, I'm going to go away for a while. I need to work me out because I got a lot of chaos happening in my world. He was gone the next morning. Gone. And then add insult to injury, right? My high school sweetheart, my girlfriend, she broke up with me. This is all happening the same time period. So anyway, there I am. My whole world is falling apart. And then and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to, create income so that I could eat. I'm literally living by myself and trying to just fend for myself. Started my first business, a lawn mowing business. And so that's how literally I put food on my own table. I was very crafty. I took pictures of my lawn that had the perfect diagonal stripes, the stripes, right? And not parallel to the street, not parallel to the driveway, but diagonal. And I took snapshots of it, brought it to the 24-hour photo. We're dating ourselves. Some people don't know what those are anymore. And I put it on a piece of paper and I wrote with a Sharpie, would you like your lawn to look like this with perfect parallel lines? And I said, if so, contact Steph 292-1167. And I put it on everybody's windshield and everybody's door. And That was the beginning of me starting a business. So in math class, rather than doing basic geometry, I was balancing a budget and figuring out, what I was going to be able to afford when I went shopping. So now this is kind of when I came into my purpose all at the same time. My world's fallen apart. And I'm called down to the principal's office again, same time period, within a few weeks. And there's a dozen of us in the principal's office. And the principal says, I know you're all wondering why you're here. First of all, you're not in trouble. We have a problem. People are committing suicide all throughout the school. Drug abuse is rampant. Said alcohol abuse is at an all-time high. He said, people are drinking and driving and getting into crazy wrecks. He goes, and the reality is they're not talking to their parents. And they're sure as heck not talking to us faculty. Apparently, they're talking to you all. And how do we know that? Because we put a little note card in homeroom about 2 weeks ago. And we said, write down the top names of people in the school that are great listeners. You can talk to about anything and you can really trust them with any information. And your names came up the most. Problem. The principal said, problem. You have no freaking clue what you're doing. You are guiding, mentoring, and coaching these people as kids. And really what we want to do is train you all so that you know what you're doing. And they said, so you have an opportunity to spend all summer in a camp where you'll deal with crisis management, how to deal with suicide, how to deal with alcohol abuse, drug abuse, parental abuse, bullying. I'm 16.
And this was a super innovative, progressive,
this is in the early 1990s in South Carolina, right? Where I grew up. And so I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, I'm living by myself. I'm having to run a lawnmower business in order to eat. And I'm just trying to figure stuff out. And I'm being asked to help other people figure something. Well, we all know that's how it works, right? We get that, right? And so that's why it all kind of came to a head and happened. But anyway, as everybody kind of left the principal's office considering it, because he said, I want you all to consider it. You don't have to say yes. He goes, you can if you want, but you got to know in your at a soul level that this is what you're meant to do. I remember like it was yesterday when he said that. And he says, you need to get your parents' approval. You need a dedicated phone line, a hotline that you can man at night. Every single night, your activities should be manning that phone. And there was always a schedule. And you have to give up your summers to go to this camp called Natural Helpers Camp. So anyway, this is where it's kind of trippy and we'll get a little metaphysical, but I think some of the listeners will be okay with that. And for the rest of them, just go with us. So the principal, he, as I'm exiting the office, he puts his hand on my shoulder, my right shoulder, and I stop and I turn around and he goes, hey, Steph, your name came up the most. So I'm counting on you. Now, all of a sudden I start feeling all these chills throughout my body, no pressure, right? And I'm like, holy cow. And then so I felt totally flushed. I'm like feeling the flush feeling right now. And I start walking out of the office again and I feel a hand on my shoulder again. This time I turn around and the principal is sitting at his desk. He was nowhere near my shoulder. And so now I felt a slight little push feeling behind my shoulder and my back, kind of guiding me down the hallway. And at that moment, I was like, this is my purpose. And I stepped into it. Right. We always tell people, like, you don't find your purpose. You didn't lose it with your car keys. You decide what your purpose is. And so in that moment at 16 years old, very grateful it happened so early, I decided, now granted, it wasn't at the scale that it is now, but I said, I think my purpose is to help people in this school, to make a positive impact with my peers. Now my purpose is a little bigger, is to make a positive impact in the lives of 1 billion people on this planet. And so anyway, but that right there was when I got into formal coaching and mentoring, not as a hobby, like as a craft.
At 16.
So I started my path of mastery in terms of having impact with other individuals at 16 years old. That's kind of my story. That's how I got into this. And it's just been a long, awesome, exciting journey and road of research, experimentation, and experience all along the way. Right. So your purpose came into the picture a little bit later.
It did. Yeah. So I didn't get, as early of start as Steph did. Yeah. Nonetheless, an early start, because I know people are still, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s and beyond looking for what their purpose is. Right. And so we actually, we teach people how to discover their purpose, right? Because we don't believe it's something that you lost, like your keys. it's within you. You just got to find it and decide that this is it.
Just
right?
decide. You just got to decide.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I grew up in a small rural town outside of Reno, Nevada. And I have an older brother who's 6 years older than me. I was always following him around. He was my hero. And, I looked up to him and I wanted to be like him. And he was quite the athlete and quite the dream, they would call him. And, I compared myself a lot to him. And so it set in some insecurities because I wasn't as good
as the dream,
good enough to be called the dream. So, that had some challenges and some insecurities that came up with it. But, as I went on in life, I found my way, what I wanted to do. And so I wanted to become an artist, and I went to school for that. And I actually got laid off at the young age of 21. And it set me into a depression. And so I started drinking and eating bad foods for me, just not taking care of myself. And so one day I woke up and I decided to make a change, and that I could be more, that I could do more, and that I could have more. And so one day I was flipping through a magazine and I found this model named Jamie Eason. And I looked at her and I decided at that moment that I wanted to be healthy and fit. And that at that moment, I was going to change my life. So I took this magazine and I went into this MMA fighting gym. And I said, I want to look like this. And I went to this big burly guy and he looked at me, he looked at her on the magazine cover, and he looked at me again and he said, why do you want that? And I said, I just want to feel comfortable and confident in my own skin. And he looked back at me and he looked back at the cover and he said, okay, let's do this. So he put me through a strenuous boot camp. Mind you, I was about 35, 40 pounds overweight. And this is the first time that I had gone into any type of gym like this. I mean, MMA fighting is all big men that are doing kickboxing and wrestling. And, and I don't know why I picked that place, but it just drew me in. So I went there and they put me through this rigorous program. And I remember you would come in and you would be like, what are you doing in here? Like,
she was fighting like MMA fighters, like that were 6'6", super big, super tall, like they could fill a doorway. And she's like doing kickboxing with them.
So he guided me, this trainer, and it took a lot of mind power. It took a lot of mental toughness, a lot of emotional resilience, discipline, and massive action. And I got my goal. I ended up losing the weight. I got my body fat percentage down to, I think, in the 15% range. And I was almost at a competition level body weight and fat percentage. And, that was great and all, but what I got out of it the most was the confidence and the ability to know that I could do something that I wanted and overcome my obstacles, my challenges. Of course, that got me out of depression and just allowed me to focus more on what I want. And so after that, all these women came to me asking, how did you do that? What did you do? Can you help me? And so for me, and about that time, I was around age 28, 29, that became that moment when, for me, that was the first time anyone had come to me asking for help. And so I was inspired by that. And I was really intrigued by that. And so that became the moment that I unlocked my purpose, which is to help others become the best version of themselves possible. So that for me was my starting point of tapping into my mind power and realizing what mental toughness and emotional resilience was to overcome, your own internal demons and then to, want to help other people do the same.
What was awesome in watching Shay, because we had been married at that point for a few years. And, for me, I felt like my road to, and listen, I wouldn't say that we have mind power mastered. I think it's an ongoing journey. Yet it's getting a little bit better at it every single day, bit by bit and bit by bit. Yet I will say there was kind of a level of unknowing all the way to, okay, a little bit of knowing for me, which was from 16 all the way until probably I was about 30 years old. So in that 14-year time period, I would say I was getting closer and closer and closer and closer to mastery, thinking about it from a Robert Greene standpoint, right? They say, what is it, 10,000 hours and something, and then you start to get to that point of mastery. And so for me, it was kind of spread out while I was doing my corporate gig over the course of time. What was fascinating with Shay was literally how fast she went towards mastery. It's almost, she just it was a steeper climb over a shorter period of time. And I got to witness that. And it was so fascinating because for me, it felt like a longer journey. And then for her, it was like, boom, like almost, it felt like overnight. She went from, almost timid and trepidatious to highly confident, commanding an audience with thousands of people and, from the stage. And, if you could imagine it, like for her, she's, I would say, walking mind power. She was labeled the most shy
in school
in the senior superlatives back in the day.
Right.
And, now commands audiences, on a global stage. So yeah, we have different stories, but then, it came together, and you'll appreciate this, Vered. Like after we met each other within literally a week or two, we sat down at a Starbucks and we compared notes about what we felt our purpose was on this planet. I don't know how many relationships do that. We're geeks, but we did. And we eat our own cooking. Like that's the thing. There's a lot of orators out there or self-help gurus or whatever, and they talk a big talk, and then you see them behind the stage and it's so incongruent. There's no match. There's just no connection. But we eat our own cooking, right? We listen to our own audiobook. We read our book at least once a year. We listen to our podcast the moment it comes out. Like, I think if you're in this field, you should eat your own cooking or there's a problem. So anyway, there we are at the Starbucks, and we were comparing notes, and something already at that moment, we were like, I think we can combine these purposes at some point. And we didn't know, this is in 2004. We didn't know how that was going to come together, but it came together about 13 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. So such amazing stories. And I imagine that people listening have either been in that place where they felt that, little kind of, touch on the shoulder, maybe a little gentle kind of push, guidance towards something, or maybe they're not there yet. And maybe they're where you were, Shay, all those years ago, feeling maybe second to somebody or not yet quite good enough or enough at something. And they are seeking some guidance here. And I believe that is why they are listening to us today. And so what would you think, and as a starting point into this next part of our conversation, would be the most important guidance that you could offer to them today?
I think what's really important for an individual to understand is what we call 3 Ps. And no, we're not talking about marketing. This is where people's brains, go immediately. No, we're not talking about recruiting A players onto, your team. That would technically be 5 Ps. These are the most important 3 Ps for an individual, which is principles, passion, and purpose. And so many people that are in the development field, they talk about principles, values. They're one and the same. And a few will talk about passion. Very few talk about it in the way in which that we talk about passion. We can talk about that here in a moment. And then there's purpose. A lot of people talk about purpose. What we found, we couldn't find an individual that they literally talked about all 3 and how they intertwine with each other. And it's really important. Like I like to simplify it by saying purpose is where you're going. Passion is how you're going to get there. Principles are how you should behave on the journey. Done.
So when you have all 3 of those aligned, then you're unstoppable and you know exactly where you're going, and you have a roadmap that you can look at to see if you're on the right path. And if not, then you know that you need to course correct and change something so that you do get on your path.
Yeah. So it's super important to understand this. It will answer when someone's clear about their 3 Ps and their 3 Ps are aligned. It will always answer the question, what do I do here? Meaning when people are stuck in indecision, and that's there's so much agony in indecision.
Oh, yeah.
People don't realize how much
time
they waste and the hours in a day that are lost to indecision, right? The late Jim Rohn, right? One of our mentors, he said the greatest thief of opportunity is indecision. So just do it or don't do it. He said, just do it or don't do it. That's why, whenever our book was a 12-year research project. And it was studying some of the most successful people in the world and what made them tick from a mindset standpoint. Not as much business strategy, but pure mind, right? Yes, a lot of those individuals had great business strategies. That's not our lane. That's not our niche, right? For us, it was related to mind. So people like Oprah Winfrey, Tom Brady, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Lindsey Vonn, list goes on and on and on. Studying these people, and success leaves clues. So we noticed these clues, and we said, over the course of 12 years, finally we had enough information to put together and put it into our book. And we front loaded it. Why I'm bringing that up in relation to your question is chapter 1 of our book talks about 3 Ps. And so we know that 80% of books that are printed are never sold. We also know that 80% of books that are bought are never read past chapter 1. So for anyone here that's listening, that's thinking about writing a book, what you need to do is front load your book. Your introduction in chapter 1 should have enough information that is when that's all the individuals are going to read, it will still be life-changing. And so in chapter 1, we talk about that. Like you got to get hyper clear on what's important to you in life, principles. You got to get hyper clear about what ignites that cauldron within you, right? That's passion. Yeah. And you got to get hyper clear about why you're here. It's your purpose.
Yeah. So in our book, we actually give exercises for the reader to ask themselves these questions so that they can get clear.
It doesn't take a seminar. It doesn't take a lifetime.
Right.
It doesn't take decades. Like it can take reading one chapter of a book, and just like that, you're clear of your 3 Ps. And now you have a blueprint to building your best life and a roadmap to your dream life. So I think that was the first thing that came to mind for me, that if someone has this dialed, it'll lead to less friction, less distraction, and less agony in indecision.
Yeah, big time. And just give people a clearer path. So many people are lost and wandering and not really knowing why they're here. And then on top of that, you put into the mix distractions.
Oh boy.
Right. Which, I mean, this thing hasn't helped us any, right? It's the phone, the smartphone is very convenient. It's, you can run your business from it, yet it's got every ding and sound and noise and vibration that pulls us. And it's every time we see a notification, it's a dopamine hit that we want to check it. And it's wrangling our focus and our mind. And the data is that 40 million bits per second of information are coming at us, and we can only consciously focus on 40.
Oh,
right. And so it's
such a disparity.
It's no wonder that people are stressed,
overwhelmed,
and scattered more than ever today. It's due to these, distractions. So we really focus a lot with our high performers on how to rein in their focus and how to be even more high performing than they already are, and to just focus on what matters and what
the 3
counts.
Ps help that.
Yes,
to your point,
because you're reining it in and you know where you're going. And so if something's not in your 3 Ps, then you have to make that decision to say, okay, then it's not worth my time, because it's not going to help me get to my end goal.
Yeah.
And I love how you've simplified this, and you've given people some specific tools to help access their own principles, passion, purpose. And when we are coherent, when we're congruent around those things, we feel inspired to make those decisions, and to, in essence, flow with what comes. So in case we make a decision and for whatever reason it's not aligned, then we get to go back to our 3 Ps, and we get to realign, recalibrate, if you will, because that's a part of life as well, that flexibility, which is why I love that your shirts say, be resilient, because the essence of resilience is that, adaptability, that flexibility to come back into balance.
Yeah. Spot on.
Absolutely.
Spot on.
So what might get in the way if we're kind of focused on the mind here? Let's say someone has their three P's. What resistance, if any, might show up? What do you typically see?
Gosh, I think, there's so many.
Especially running parachutes.
Yeah. I think
Tell us about that. What do you mean by running parachutes? What is that?
yeah. So for your audience to, envision or think about a running parachute. I don't know if the audience has seen one before, but it's basically athletes will train with a running parachute. It's a parachute you attach to your front, and then it's, it creates a drag and a resistance when you're in training.
It's also called a training parachute.
Yes.
I don't know. Have you ever trained with one, Farid?
I have not, but I've seen them.
You've seen them.
We have, because we're retired endurance athletes, and so we used to train with them all the time when we were training for triathlons.
So you train with this, and the body gets used to working harder because this resistance and this drag is happening as they're training and running. And then on game day, or performance day, competition day, they take it off, and now they're faster and they're stronger and they're better because they trained with that resistance or that drag. And so the body thinks it's still there, but it's not.
Right.
And it's overcoming that. And they have explosive top speeds off the line.
Almost like a superhuman.
Yeah.
Like they're almost as if by magic faster and more explosive. And they purposely inflict this pain on themselves and create this drag in their world in order for them, whenever it's gone, to be faster. And then this is very metaphorical to what we call running parachutes, except for our running parachutes. They're invisible, and we got them from other people.
And they're in the form of negative emotions and limitations, things like anger and fear and anxiety and not good enough, self-doubt. And these are the running parachutes that attach to us, slow us down, create this resistance and this drag, and keep us from ultimately achieving what we want in life.
Now, in our 20s and our 30s, we just have all this like infinite amounts of energy. And so we even though they're there and they've already likely attached like somewhere between 0 and 7, according to Dr. Morris Massey, famous sociologist in the imprint period. But in your teens, 20s, 30s, you're overpowering it with so much adrenaline, hormones, etc., possibly caffeine, whatever. And then 30s into the 40s happen. And that's when individuals start a little bit to not have the same vigor as they maybe did in their teens and their 20s. And so they start feeling the running parachutes. Well, then there's good things and there's bad things. Some of the good things might be prayer, meditation, breathing exercises, fitness, eating good, clean food. And these are things that will help them to overcome the running parachutes, not disconnect them, but to be able to cope or deal with them, even though they're not disconnected, but to be able to just overcome them. Now, then there's the negative things, caffeine, smoking, drugs, stimulants, alcohol, whatever, other coping mechanisms for not addressing your running parachutes. Yeah. So some are better than others, of course. Then the 50s, 60s comes around, and the reality is if someone's not addressing their running parachutes, these mental and emotional barriers, then they will start to slow down. This is when disease begins. And then unfortunately, the path towards passing on. And so same like the trainers, right? The athletes that train with these running parachutes or training parachutes, when they're gone, they have superhuman-like speeds. Same thing happens. If an individual can identify that of which that is holding them back from getting their big effing goals, as we call them, or BEGs for short, then once the awareness already starts the disconnection process. Then through certain, techniques, modalities, et cetera, drawing upon maybe practices like Dr. Viktor Frankl, when he talked about in logotherapy, finding meaning in your events in the past, you can start to do the process of disconnecting the running parachutes. So what happens? You're faster top speeds, you're more explosive off the line, you're almost like a superhuman in terms of all your capabilities, which is why when people come through our breakthrough program, it's an 8-week program called Mindpower Breakthrough. By week 4, they're done with all the running parachutes, they're all gone. And they're saying things like, I cleaned my car, I cleaned my house, like I did my taxes.
I feel more focused. This is clear thinking.
It explains why. Yeah. Because the running parachutes are gone. right? And so that's the same exact thing that happens, is they're just like, wow, I have all this time. Tell them about Amanda, who how many hours?
Yeah. So we had this wonderful woman come through one of our Mindpower breakthroughs. And she, after letting go of all her running parachutes, her biggest one was fear. And so afterwards she came to us and she goes, Stéph Shay, what do I do? She goes, I now have 3 hours on my hands that I previously was just in fear, having panic attacks, anxiety, worry constantly. She goes, that's gone. She goes, I don't know what to do with my time.
3 hours.
I mean, how amazing is it to have 3 hours back, right? We said, okay, you can do whatever you want with that time. Maybe, spend more time with your kids, put more time into your business, your health, what do you think you want to do? And she goes, well, I'm going to do, a little bit of all of that. Right. So she got just an absolute change in her life just from letting go of those running parachutes, which literally gave her more time in her life. Crazy. It's amazing how much time we let our mental and emotional barriers steal from us.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And one of my clients, we were helping her to release some of her running parachutes, specifically fear. And so, as she kind of went back in her mind to kind of a root cause, it was when she was 3 years old. Now, of course, she wasn't conscious of this event until, of course, we did the process. But that little 3-year-old girl got frozen in time, if you will, with some parachutes, such as the emotion of fear, such as a belief that the world is not safe. Wow. And so when she'd released that little girl, if you will, right, that part of her was in a field of flowers with sunshine, and she was able to be light and to play, right? She was freed, right? That running parachute was disconnected, right? And she, of course, came to many ideas after that about how to solve certain issues. So I'm so grateful to you that you share this in your book, and of course in your trainings, so that people can learn how to do this either for themselves or to get your support. Yep. Whether it's through this breakthrough program or for people who wish to study with you, to get certified with you, because I believe it is really the essence of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to be able to get that momentum, Shay, like you did, right? A condensed period of time, right? As you said, kind of that superpower. It's just phenomenal, and it's possible for all of us. And so kind of as a starting point, if people are curious, well, where do I even start by identifying and releasing my running parachutes?
Yeah, I think, whenever it comes down to it, you can't look at your past. And this is, I think, one of the challenges of a lot of practices, modalities, and processes that are in the mental health field is looking at your past as this, dark place. And it doesn't have to be. The late Dr. Viktor Frankl taught us that even through the times of greatest suffering, that it can actually be wonderful, joyous memories if we choose to believe it to be so. So I think first and foremost, we have to ask ourselves, do we need to consistently look back into the past and look at it as a dark place? And, and to each their own. Some individuals, the reality is they develop an identity out of their past, and it's not a good one. And every single aspect of what's going on in their world, or I should say not going on in their world, or not happening for them or whatnot, is always due to their past. And Shay and I say, just get to the bottom of it and knock it out. Like, Warren Buffett has a great quote. He says, only when the tide runs out is when you find out who's been swimming naked. And the reality is when the pandemic hit a couple of years ago, the tide went out and we saw who was swimming naked. And the individuals who had hardships in their life, in their relationships, and their business suffered was because they weren't working on their mind power on a daily basis, simply put. So what you have to do is you got to get your trunks on, metaphorically speaking. And what do we mean by that? You got to look at your past as an opportunity for phenomenal growth, and just say, fine, okay, this is what I want. What could be keeping me from getting what I want? Okay, where could that stem from? Who did I learn it from? right? What a lot of people don't understand is that we are a learn by watching species. We are a social tribe species. We learn by mimicking. 98% of our behaviors that we have today were learned by watching somebody else. And so this gets into the whole notion of becoming a mind-powered leader. A mind-powered leader leads from the front. They literally lead by example. And so this is so important to understand. So you have to understand that we learn by watching. So a lot of people try to do a lot of leading. They try to do a lot of guiding. They like people that are in therapy to do a lot of therapy or mentoring or coaching or whatever by doing a lot of talking. Well, the best thing that you can do is you walk that talk, and then they're going to follow you no matter the context, including in parenting, which we're about to embark on that journey here in about 2 months, right? We're constantly thinking, it's not what I'm going to say to our baby boy that's coming into the picture. It's what we're going to do. And he will model that. He will match that.
Yeah.
And so going back to, making sure that we're viewing our past in a positive way, we have to decide to say, okay, this is what I want. This is what could be keeping me from what I want. This is what is at the root of that. And then just go. And then here's what a lot of people don't know. Just being willing to explore what is at the root of the matter or at the heart of the matter for the current behavior right now that you don't enjoy or that you want to break already starts the healing process. It doesn't take 30 years of talking to somebody on a weekly basis for an hour to get that problem to go away. Heck, it doesn't even require going to a trained practitioner and doing a guided meditation. I mean, that helps, but the reality is, let's be real, we're all about empowerment. It doesn't even require that. The main thing it requires the most is to be willing to explore your past, find those demons, and rather than doing what most people do, which is running from their demons, turn around and hug your demons, and then magically they disappear.
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah. It's about awareness, having that self-awareness and that, desire to just figure it out. Right. And not letting it keep you a prisoner.
Yep.
And to always find the silver lining in even the most horrific, traumatic events.
Yep.
Right. And so anyone who can do that, they'll win in life. They'll win in life and get out of that victim mentality of like, well, this happened to me. And I mean, we've all seen the inspirational stories of individuals who have had massive traumas and hardships and whatnot. And, and how they've turned it around into their greatest strength.
Yep.
And so we all have that capability. We've all had hardships, no matter how big or small. And it's about, using that to fuel us to get to a new higher ground and just say, yeah, that happened. Here's how I choose to look at it now. It happened to make me stronger and better and faster and whatnot. And now I'm going to, do this instead and focus on what you want after that.
Yeah. Or I mean, that's the key is just be aware, get the lesson or the learning, and then let it go. And then start to go out in your life and do the thing. This is something since last time, we spoke, our coaching model, whether we do it privately or in group, because we do both, it is flipped upside down. We used to be 90% techniques, 10% helping them to go out and start living their best life. Now it's upside down. It's 10% techniques and 90% future pacing.
Yeah.
And this is so important. So many coaches think they have this magic pill, this magic process, this magic technique, just sit here and it's all. The reality is that's a great catalyst and that's it, just to get them thinking about it for a moment. But then from that point forward, the individual, they need to do, as Ralph Waldo Emerson said, do the thing and you will have the power. They who does not the thing will not have the power. And so you need to do the thing is what he said. And I think that's it. Like it's a very simple stepped process. What do you want? What's keeping you from getting what you want? Okay. Where did you learn that behavior? Like we were talking about earlier, we're learned by watching species. Who, when, where did you learn that from? decide what you want to do instead, getting the lesson or the learning, and then just blow the doors on the mind to the past and be done with it.
Yeah.
And then go and start doing the thing. And then when you start doing the thing, then you will have the power.
Oh, so brilliantly said. Thank you. And I just love how you are helping people to clarify their three Ps, right? The principles, the passion, the purpose, and helping them to identify what those running parachutes are, right? Where people can ask themselves, as you said, like, right? From a very curious, compassionate, not like self-judgmental or anything like that, but
Yes,
just from a place of compassion, right?
Exactly.
Be curious, and the answer will come. And then when you said that magical word, you said hug that part. And I think that's the key, to dissolve it in the compassion, not to fight it out, to love it. And then it will give us that silver lining, that meaning, as Viktor Frankl, kind of said, which will inspire us, ignite us to make those decisions in a more congruent place. And of course, to do those things, to take those actions, because we'll enjoy it. We'll have fun.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
true. Awareness is so, I will say, underappreciated, understood, and underused. And, I think of a great quote from Epicurus: the knowledge of sin is the beginning of salvation. And what people don't get is just being able to consider what of which is causing the behavior today already starts the healing process. Nathaniel Branden said the first step toward change is awareness. The second step is acceptance. And then we would add in there, the third step is massive action, meaning go do the thing. So there's no need for us to overcomplicate, the whole process of healing. It's beautiful. And I'm not discounting all of these wonderful modalities that are out there that do it, but I'm like, just get on with it already. And the members of our programs, they just love the fact that we get into it, we resolve it, and we get to work towards creating a new future. I think that's what individuals need to do, is celebrate it, that past, learn from it, move on, and start living your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Because isn't that what we're here for, right? Is to live life to its fullest, to live our purpose, right? And to enjoy and help and inspire and give back, and, all those things. And if we're stuck in our shiitake and, and it's dragging us back, then we're not here able to truly fulfill our purpose of why we're here on this planet, because we're too focused in the past, right? Like, yes, we've all got stuff in our past. Just turn around, focus towards your future, and, get to work, do the thing.
Do the thing. You will have the power.
That's right. And in the doing the thing, you're also giving the thing, because you're inspiring other people, as you two have inspired me and countless others. So how can people learn about your programs? How can they get your awesome book and really, enjoy all of the wonderful gifts that you share?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So you spilled the beans, Varen. Come on, Varen. Varen totally spilled the beans. Like, it was supposed to be our surprise. It's okay. You can own it. You can have the surprise. Well, so first of all, in terms of how to get a hold of us, our website is stephandshay.com, and that's STEPH. That's me. And then AND, and then SHAY.
That's me.
.com. And that's where you can find out information about our programs. We have a lot of great programs, very innovative, all virtual. We have an annual membership program called Mindpower Boost, which has a resource of awesome Mindpower tools inside a vault that you have access to as long as you're a member. And then plus a live mentor session with us once a month. And we're practically giving that one away. We have an 8-week developmental program called Mindpower Breakthrough, which is helping you get clear about what you want and breaking through all your running parachutes in about 8 weeks, and then amping up your productivity, 10xing your productivity, and then also changing your relationship with money and getting into a whole nother mindset around, I would say, goal achievement. We also have a 12-week program called Mindpower Coaching Academy, where somebody becomes a Mindpower coach. We literally actually teach them our system on how we grew our business. Basically teach them in 12 weeks what took us 12 years to figure out. Like, we've been through the belly of the beast and the valley of death, so they don't have to. And we actually we're teaching this program how we wish we were taught, because we've developed a multi-7-figure coaching business. Very grateful. It's been awesome over the last few years, impacting so many wonderful lives. And we want more coaches to be able to stop struggling in their businesses and actually start winning. And so that's what the Academy is all about. So StéphaneShay.com has a lot of great information. You don't need to buy our book because we're going to buy you a book. We have our Wall Street Journal bestselling book, the new edition. And we would like to buy you a copy of the book. All we ask is that you cover shipping. Yeah, that's all we ask, is that you cover shipping. So what you can actually do is you can text the number 801-618-2655 and just text book. And then a link will come to you automatically. And then you just fill out your information, cover shipping, and you will be getting a copy of our book. And the first 15 people will get a signed copy of our book as well.
Yes.
So hopefully you're one of those. I mean, this is being, obviously on multiple different avenues. This is being presented, but we hope that you're one of those great individuals. But we want to buy you a book. We're going to buy you a book. Like, make it easy. Remember what we said, the greatest thief of opportunity is indecision. So we want to take the indecision out of the equation, right, the agony out of the equation.
Do it or don't do it. And we'll leave you with that. And again, that number is 801-618-2655. And you just text the word book.
That's it.
And then you'll get the link to order it. And it'll be on its way.
Oh, well, thank you for that wonderful gift for all of our listeners. Thank you for the many gifts that you have given to me personally. And all my love to you and your beautiful growing family.
Oh, thank you so much, Vered. It's been
so much, Vered.
A pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate you.